Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pie Guy and Brodeur. One voice, two minds. I'm your host, Pie Guy, and today we're talking all about the word resilience. As always on these episodes, I will be circling back with the one and the only Brodeur of Brodeurland, Mr. Brodeur. Hey everybody, and you know what, Pie Guy? I am really excited today to talk about and dive into this word resilience because you know what? This word has really moved up the charts on my all-time favorite words of the week here on Brodeurland, to even getting to the point that it may be rivaling perseverance as number one, my favorite word of the week. Hold the phone, everybody. This is breaking news right here. Mr. Brodeur is just saying perseverance may not be his number one word because resilience may overtake it. Well, let's back up a little bit, Pie Guy. Maybe I'm a little excited right now. I will say this. Perseverance will probably always be my number one, just because I utilize it in so many things, whether it's my songs and lessons, and of course, how it resonated throughout my life and still today. But I will say this. What I'm really excited to talk about today is how resilience, the more I've learned about it, has really produced so many great fruits in my life. The more I use it and the more that I apply it to challenges and projects and things that I am seeking to do in my life. Whoa. All right. Well, you know what, Mr. Brodeur? I'm pretty intrigued right now, and I'm really ready to pick your brain on this word resilience. So, you know what? Without further ado, let's really slice into things, Mr. Brodeur, and let me get this first question rolling, and it is this. What does resilience mean to you, Mr. Brodeur? And you know what? How would you define it for us as we embark on this journey today? Yes, great question. And you know what? I always love that we start with a question like this, Pie Guy, because it's great to know, what do I think about resilience? What does it mean, right? And to me, it means this: to be able to recover quickly from difficulties or challenges that you may face in your life, and also that toughness. Do you have that toughness to withstand that negativity, right? And what I mean by that negativity is this: when we tend to face those difficulties, those challenges, we tend to have that negativity, those negative thoughts in our brain that say, what is it worth? Let's just stop. I give up. Let me move on to something else, right? Versus, can you recover quickly and ignore those negative thoughts so you can persevere forward? Now, Mr. Brodeur, let me ask you this. You talked about perseverance right there at the end. And to be honest, I don't know about the rest of our viewers. It kind of sounds to me like resilience is a lot like perseverance. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but why not just pick one of these words instead of using both? And that is a great question, Pie Guy. And to be honest, this is why I love that we're doing this podcast episode, because I'm able to really dive in to your question. And also, I'll be quite honest, I almost felt the same a couple years back when I was really putting together these words of the week. And, you know, for me, I almost will say this. I believe resilience and perseverance are separate things, and here's why: because I think they go hand in hand. Please explain more, Mr. Brodeur, because again, I still feel like they pretty much mean the same thing. Yes, and so let me explain. So for me, if I look at all of my words of the week, and this is pretty much kind of previewing the rest of our episodes, right, coming up, all of my words of the week, I feel like, build off of each other, right? And so, for example, the two we're looking at right now, and to better answer your question, resilience and perseverance, I look at resilience as step one. Resilience is how fast can you get back up when you fail, when you have a setback, when things don't go your way. Then perseverance is that part two, and it's your ability to be able to move forward and to get moving forward after you get back up. So, Mr. Brodeur, let me get this right. You're saying resilience is how fast you get back up, but perseverance is more like, all right, I'm standing up, but now I got to start moving forward. Yes, that is exactly it, Pie Guy. And I love how you just pretty much summarize it just like that. And here's the thing. Here's what I want everybody to get out of this right now. All my words of the week, like I said, really build off of each other. For example, resilience, get back up. Perseverance, move forward. Now, let me just pick kind of random words, like creativity is one of my words of the week, right? You get back up with resilience, but in order to move forward with perseverance, you may have to be creative because what you did before didn't work. So how can I be creative and do something differently? And then maybe use self-discipline, another word of the week, right? To keep moving forward, even when I'm in a grit, even when I have those negative thoughts going through my brain, to keep doing it, even if I don't see that success right away, right? And that's why I feel like resilience, perseverance, all these words of the week are just building blocks. They're steps for success. Wow. Very interesting, Mr. Brodeur. And that really makes it intriguing too as we dive into these later on episodes, because now I really want to know, how do all these words really build off of each other and really work with each other? So pretty much what you're saying is these words of the week are more building steps. They're almost kind of like an interconnective web of strategies used to pretty much persevere through life. Yes, exactly, Pie Guy. Perseverance and resilience, they're used a lot in our lives. But sometimes we have to work with creativity. Sometimes we got to be optimistic. Sometimes we got to be reflective, right? And reflect back to why we failed. Try to think of a creative way to persevere forward, be optimistic about that plan. And then, of course, another word of the week, adaptable, right? Can I adapt as I keep moving forward, right? Awesome. I love it, Mr. Brodeur. And, I'll be honest, right now, we're talking about resilience. We're talking about perseverance. Seems like you talk a lot about failing, getting back up. So let me talk about this, if you don't mind. What are some moments in your life where you needed resilience? Were you resilient or were you not? Great question, Pie Guy. So yeah, now I will admit, resilience, I've gotten a little bit better as I've gotten older. I mean, as a kid, we all hate losing. I mean, who loves losing, right? And like I shared in my persevering episode that we just did prior to this one, my dad had his quote, losers make excuses, winners have their ways, right? And so for me, yes, I was pretty bad at being resilient as a kid, but my dad helped me really learn how to be resilient, how to not make excuses, but find ways so I can succeed. And so for me, I would say an early, I guess what you would say, failure that I had in my education career. When I first became an educator, I was really into movie news and movies and going out to the latest movies and almost kind of like a movie geek, I guess you could say. I was really into movies and fascinated with stories and inspiration. And so I thought maybe I could make my own movie talk channel because I would always watch John Campea, who is a big-time movie blogger on YouTube and all those things and talks about movie news and all those. And so I thought, well, let me see if I can recreate something like his. So I did. I tinkered with stuff. I tried to do some things. And you know what, to be honest, it just didn't work out. It was just kind of a failure. I didn't really see much progress. And part of that is, as I reflect back and that I learn, part of it is I was talking about movies that I didn't really care about, but I was trying too hard to be maybe something I wasn't. And those were part of the reasons maybe of that failure. But I'll be honest, resilience was not in the bag so much because I really was not resilient after that failure. I pretty much just kind of said to the wayside, and I just kind of threw it over to the side and just forgot about it, to be quite honest. So, Mr. Brodeur, you're saying you used to have this movie talk channel? Yeah, I used to have this movie talk channel. And like I said, it was a failure. And I gave up on it. And it's sad looking back to it because that was me not really being very resilient. Now, I'll talk about how I've learned from that failure now, but I wish I would have been resilient because it might have pushed me a little bit quicker into my Brodeurland journey. But another failure where I was a little bit more resilient than that movie talk failure was I was at the high school for 4 years. Then I had an opportunity to be the youth ministry director, everything pretty much K through 12 at my church that I attend here, Our Lady of Perpetual Help here in Carrollton. And during that journey, the junior high youth group was kind of in a weird situation. It was growing, but it was stuck downstairs in kind of like a classroom you could undivide and create into 2 classrooms. But it just seemed like it was just a growing, packed class. And you're talking about middle school age kids that really need to get out, maybe do an activity, then kind of have a lesson, and all those type of things. And so we had a setback in that program. Things weren't going in the right direction. And so I knew, okay, at this time, it was kind of the spring semester. We were getting near the end of the year. And I thought, okay, I need to do something right now for the moment just to kind of fix things. And then over the summer, I can redraw up, really think through some new ways we could improve the junior high youth group. And so that's what I did. I made the moves I needed to do after having the setback. Then over the summer, I said, you know what? I want to open this up. I want to give them the upstairs. There's more area to play with. We can open up with a game or an activity or something to get them moving, and then come back and do a lesson, talk about whatever that lesson I want to talk about is. But we could really make it more of a youth group sense rather than a classroom sense. And that year following, that junior high youth group was one of the highlights of the year for me. To be honest, that was probably one of the best improvements that the programs, out of all the programs that I was running, had. I feel like that was, like I said, one of the highlights and one of the successes. And part of that was being resilient and knowing, okay, I got to be creative. I got to work with what I got right now and keep pushing forward. Wow. Awesome, Mr. Brodeur. So you go from movie talk where you failed pretty much and you weren't really resilient. Junior high youth group, you were able to be a little bit more resilient. You had to be, I guess you would say you had to be a little bit patient because you also had to wait for it to come back after the summer, but you were able to retool, kind of be creative in that persevering process. So let me ask you this then. Do you feel you have been able to be more resilient now in your life? Are you better at being resilient? You share kind of these 2 scenarios. So how about now? Yes, Pie Guy. And so for me right now, I would say I definitely feel like I am able to flex that resilience muscle more than ever. And I'll give you a perfect example. Recently, in the past couple of years, I became Teacher of the Year. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. And when I became Teacher of the Year, for me, I always have a hard time with recognition. I always like pushing myself and trying to become the best version of myself. But I always hate having the attention on me sometimes, which you would think is kind of weird because here's Mr. Brodeur creating videos and songs and all that stuff. But like I said, it's not necessarily for me. It's for my students and to help people become the best version of themselves. And also for me to learn more about myself. And so along that journey, the next thing in line when you become Teacher of the Year is you are up for running for System Teacher of the Year. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to worry so much about it. I'm just going to be who I am, put everything on the table, and do my best. And at that time, that was the beginning of the creation of Brodeurland. So I didn't really have any of the videos and the podcast and the things that most people know Brodeurland to be of right now. However, I did have my words of the week. I did have my intro song and my end of the week song and little nuggets like that. But it was a very beginning stages of Brodeurland. So as the System Teacher of the Year announcement came and I gave everything, I put everything on the table, I found out I didn't get it. And boom, setback right there. Because I thought, man, I put everything on the table. I did everything I possibly could with what I was doing at that time for Brodeurland. And so I remember reflecting on that and going, okay, remember, it's not about the recognition, but I was like, it does sting a little bit. I mean, there was a little bit of disappointment. Well, yeah, Mr. Brodeur, I think I would be disappointed too, especially if you were up for, a great honor of maybe being System Teacher of the Year. Yeah, Pie Guy. And you know what? To be honest, I'm so glad I ended up losing. Whoa, Mr. Brodeur, you are saying you are glad you lost and didn't become System Teacher of the Year? Yes. Mr. Brodeur, you're going to have to explain this. I will, Pie Guy. So let me explain why. Losing System Teacher of the Year was probably the best thing that ever happened, because here's why. When I lost, I realized, well, wait a minute. I didn't do enough. There's more I can do. There's more I can push myself. So this right here, I would say in the next 48 hours after I found out I didn't get System Teacher of the Year, I said, okay, what is it that I can do to push myself forward? What is 1 to 2 things that I can start to do to improve Brodeurland, to become better, and really use this as self-motivation, to pick myself up and persevere? Because here's the deal, and I go back to the quote that I created, which is this: success that you can't repeat is failure, but failure where you know why you failed and where to go next, that's success. And that's exactly where I was. I failed, but I knew where to go next. I knew I needed to improve. And so the first element is, hey, let me take these words of the week, let me make them into a video form so students can always go back to maybe a YouTube video or something like that, and they can always get the message they had in Brodeurland. So I started off with a simple 1 to 2 minute video, and from there, you guys know the story, right? It blossomed, and I would start to tinker more and more and more, push myself to the next limit. Maybe I did a video and I said, that one didn't come out as good. So I use that as self-motivation, and eventually I get to where I am now doing a podcast with you, Pie Guy. That's true, Mr. Brodeur. So you're saying that failure, you were resilient because you use it as self-motivation to persevere forward. Like, you were able to pick yourself up within 24 to 48 hours and then use self-motivation to find a plan to create something to persevere forward. Yes. And that's exactly it, Pie Guy. That's exactly what I did. And what I love, and I guess the best way to explain this is, like I said before, I loved failing in that moment now that I reflect back. And I almost would say I love failing more than success. Mr. Brodeur, you got to quit with this. Like, why you keep talking about you love failing? I get it from that moment you use it as self-motivation, but you just seem like you're confusing me. So like this, Pie Guy, the reason I love failing more is because a lot of times when I fail, it's a challenge. All right. Like, maybe I have a tough class, right? I had a 6th period that was hard to teach, but it was a challenge for me. And I was able to work with it every day. And I was able to challenge myself. Can I turn these students around? Can I make them really believe in themselves? And I did by the end of the year. And it was great. But the problem that I have with success is sometimes with success, I don't know where to go next, right? And so that to me is sometimes harder than failing and knowing, okay, this is why I failed, let me move forward. And a good way of looking at it is, I watched this Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary called Arnold. And if you don't know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a big-time bodybuilder champion back in his day, big-time movie star. Some of you guys probably seen him in, some of those big-time movies of Terminator and things of that nature. But I love his documentary because he said this: in anything that he did, whether it was bodybuilding or movies, or later on he ended up becoming governor for 8 years, or I don't know if it was 8 years, but it was 2 terms for California. But he said no matter what, he gave everything and he had no regrets because he never went in having a plan B. Wait, Mr. Brodeur, he never had a plan B? I thought a lot of times you would want a plan B. That's what I thought too, Pie Guy, but I love the way he said it. He said, when you have a plan B, you're already looking for the escape. Go in without the plan B. Put everything on the table, because he said this: if you give it your all and you lose, for example, he said, I lost at some movies. I had movies go in the toilet, he said. I had bodybuilding competitions I lost, but because I gave it my all, I knew why I lost and I was able to improve on it. Versus if I didn't give it my all, I would have second guesses. I would second guess myself. What if I did this? And here's one thing I learned, Pie Guy, is this: disappointment hurts. We hate being disappointed. But disappointment only happens and lasts just for a little bit. And it only weighs a little. But regret, it weighs a ton. I would rather have disappointment than regret that weighs a ton, right? And life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient if we're able to flex that muscle more and more. Can I get back up as quick as possible so I can persevere forward? I love it, Mr. Brodeur. And I love how you give us this insight into things you've been able to connect, whether it's a documentary to help you really understand resilience more and utilize it more, how you love failure more than success, still mind-boggling for me, I'll be quite honest. But I love it. I love your approach to this and how you've been able to really explain how resilience is a separate word from perseverance, and how it is to get back up, and perseverance is, can I keep moving forward? So let me ask you this as we try to wrap things up. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today on resilience, before we have to go? Yes, Pie Guy. And, I always love how you asked this question at the end, because I always have something that I feel like maybe I forgot to say throughout our conversation. And I would almost kick myself if I didn't talk about this quote by Michael Jordan. Of course, Michael Jordan, some people would say, is the best or one of the best NBA players of all time. And he said this: I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and I missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeeded. Well, Mr. Brodeur, I will tell you this. That sounds like you, because Michael Jordan just talked about failing and how he loved it because it helped him succeed. Yes, exactly, Pie Guy. And that's why I love it too, because I think so much we get lost in the legacy of these successful people, whether it's a Michael Jordan or any successful person that you know in life or we know in life out there, right? And we need to be reminded that even the greats had to use resilience to persevere as well. And what we tend to see as we reflect on their legacy is only the highlights. Hey, he won 6 championships. He never lost in the NBA Finals in the sense of the overall series, right? But resilience is accepting that new reality, even if it's less good than the one you had before. Because when we have a setback, that reality sometimes isn't as good at the start that we had previously, right? Because we failed. But here's your options. You can fight it. You can do nothing but scream about it when you've lost, or you can accept that it's going to be okay. Let me accept my current circumstances. Let me try to put something together and make it good. For me, I didn't want to be teaching at a middle school level. I really didn't. And when I came back from the youth ministry into education, that was the only opportunity I had. But I will tell you this, I seeked an opportunity. I got good at it. And then I applied my passions. And you know what? I did something in an unusual way. I stirred the pot. And that's what I challenge you all to do. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged, right? Push forward. Pick yourself up as quick as you can so you can move forward on those goals in that life ahead of you. Thank you, Mr. Brodeur, again, for really diving into this word resilience. I love it. And I don't know about everybody out there, but I know I have some takeaways just listening to you explain resilience more and more. So remember, my friends, be infinite. And Mr. Brodeur, I'll let you sign off like you always do. So take it away. Sure thing, bye, guy. So remember, everyone, you make each day a special day by just you being you. There's no one in the whole world like you except you. And I like you. We like you just the way you truly are. It's good that you exist, but you got to go out there. You've got to be resilient. You got to pick yourself up as quick as you can so you can persevere forward, move forward in your life so you can become that best version of yourself. So until next time, Brodeur out. Peace.